However, hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of The Extra Shift. I'm Chris here, as always, with Brendan. How are we doing?
Good, yeah. It's been a long, really. I mean, just the last week has been packed with stuff. It hasn't been so long, I guess, since we last talked. But there's been a draft, there's been a shitload of trades, there's been a bunch of signings. So we're gonna have a busy evening, I think. Welcome to episode 237.
Remember when the Kachuk deal happened?
Yeah.
Remember when the Kachuk deal happened? And it's felt like it was years ago.
It feels like that was a month ago, and that was like a week ago. I think it's been something like it's been a week and a half since we're last on. Yeah, it's a lot. But yeah, look, we won't waste too much time with
it's been weird.
number 37s and so forth. We've got a lot of things to say. I mean, look, we're probably going to talk about more signings and things that we realistically people care about. But there's always one that someone if it feels is important, then that maybe someone else might not. But bear with us. We'll make it through the ones that we feel are worth mentioning that aren't some AHL guy or whatever.
And if you're in the chat and we don't cover someone that you want covered, let us know, because we can do it.
We'll pull it up. We'll talk about some random guy that no one's ever heard of that you feel is going to be the next star on your team.
Speaking of random guys that no one's ever really heard of before, the NHL draft took place, and
yes,
this was obviously I did the top 12 picks live, and then everyone very quickly decided that they were done. And
so that was about 4 hours of content, because the draft is fucking.
It was almost 2. It ended up being about 2 hours 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and like half an hour of that was Justin Bieber asking Mr. McKenna to come up on stage, and that was I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. It's rare that you look at a situation and think that Gary Bettman is probably the most in control person in the situation, but Gary Bettman was like. Justin Bieber, I think everyone has kind of agreed that Bieber walked up on stage, looked at him and leant over and basically said, I don't know what the fuck to do. And like there was a moment where it looked like he was going to walk over to Gavin McKenna sitting at the lounge and just like literally pick him up and move him to the stage. There was a moment where it looked like Justin Bieber might sing. The Buffalo crowd booed him mercilessly.
I like that. Like the day before the draft, there was this rumor that there's going to be an A-list celebrity who's going to announce Toronto's pick, and everyone kind of went like, oh well, this mustn't be someone who they've had on repeatedly for several years or whatever. This must be some new person or whatever. And like, oh yeah, of course it's just Justin Bieber. Like yeah,
it's Mr. NHL All-Star Game himself. It's Mr. It's Mr. All-Star Game. It's Mr. That image of him being crunched in the corner at the All-Star Game is one of the best. I love that image. It's a great one. He's literally against the boards. That's
one of the few times I feel like they actually did a pretty good job at the All-Star Game of like implementing like celebrities and so forth into the mix of like having a few that were actually at least able to skate, like to the point of they could be on the ice with the players and not be a danger to themselves was nice. That was a nice touch. I don't know why they've decided after that.
There were a few. There was an A-lister at the draft. I'm referring, of course, to Layla Edwards. The absolute breakout superstar of that draft was Layla Edwards. Every time Layla made an appearance, everyone's like, yeah, she's really bloody good. And I'm like, yeah, go San Jose. Also, Gary, I don't like the fact that Gary outsources the trade button to the crowd now. That's a bit weird. Section 37, do you have something for me? And there's a really awkward pause.
Everyone check under your seats, mate. You might have an envelope.
You have been drafted to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Anyway, we'll talk about Columbus in a minute. That's how they're going to get players, right? Every third seed at the draft. Congratulations, you're on the roster.
You're going to Winnipeg.
Don Waddell. And look, when I was trying to figure out what image I was going to have for this, I thought about Gavin McKenna. I thought about a bunch of other things, but nothing really sung to me like Don Waddell's head. I thought it was appropriate for the thumbnail for the podcast. So, obviously, with the draft, the boring one is that Gavin McKenna goes first overall. Boring. We're all here to talk about Mike Greer and Mike Greer's outstanding day. We'll talk about.
It was a very, very impressive draft haul for the Sharks, but definitely, like, I mean, obviously there came in a lot of draft capital coming in, but left out with a lot more.
I've asked Stenberg second. Yep. Stenbergsman. So we knew that after 2 there'd be a bit of chaos. We knew that. What we would expect, Caleb Maholtra did go 3. Okay, fine. Cool.
Yep.
Well, they did. But then Buffalo, with the draft pick they got, the draft pick they picked up the other. Now, Daxon Rudolph had been projected by most of them to be the last of the defensemen taken. So I think that's a really interesting call. I think it was a really weird call in many ways. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it was always going to be a mixed bag of which order the D went in. Everyone had a slightly different opinion. It seemed like most people were suggesting that Reed Chase was going to be the first D off the board. And there were, a few kind of exciting, like, oh, this guy's moving up, this guy's moving up and so forth. But yeah, I don't know, like, it took me a little bit by surprise, but there isn't a huge difference between 4 and 8, really. Like, it's kind of much of a muchness at that point. So I think it's really just a matter of, at that point, who, someone took an interest in, and in terms of, like, the players that they interviewed, the players that they feel project or work well in their system or whatever. We'll see, I guess, in a few years' time, whether that was the right choice. Probably the best player in this draft will end up being someone who was taken like 14th or something. So look, it's just, who's 14th? Oscar Hemming. I don't know if that's the case, but it is what it is. It's fine to me.
Oscar Hemming, Columbus.
Yeah, that's it. I did it. But yeah, anyway, look, I think
they got there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lag, by the way, if anyone's wondering. It'll be fine in a minute.
So we'll fix it up.
I will do the next bit. Yeah, I will do the next bit, which is that I was surprised. I was sitting there watching. And as the defensemen started to drop, the fact that Chase Reed was still sitting there, we got to 7, and I realized that Verhoff, Reed were still sitting there. And I kind of figured that Winnipeg wouldn't go defense. So if Winnipeg weren't going to go defense, we were going to get one of the two. I like Chase Reed. Keaton Verhoff was the guy before the draft I'd been incredibly high on. I think I said he was the most Rangers defenseman to ever Ranger. And he was very likely to be, if he'd gone to New York, I thought that would be a sign that Adam Fox was going, because he does a lot of the same Adam Fox things. So I thought that Verhoff would go there. The fact that they went Albert Smits, that they went the experienced player against men in men's hockey, and then Carson Carell's went, and that one made sense to me. And then Viggo Bjork goes to Winnipeg, and then I'm like, well, Keaton Verhoff is going to be there for the Sharks. How the hell is Keaton Verhoff going to be there for the Sharks? And, they get Keaton Verhoff, and then they trade back in the draft, and then trade back up in the draft. They go backwards, then come back forwards again, because watching what was going on, Ryan Lynn, I'd said, and I mocked him to Pittsburgh, and I said, I thought that Dubas might go up because someone might take Ryan Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it briefly, but before the Pittsburgh pick was made, before in those kind of couple of leading picks, and it's just like, oh, okay, there's
Yeah.
a good chance Ryan Lynn might fall to Pittsburgh. This might all work out, and then Mike Greer gets on the phone and jumps in ahead of them one spot. I'm like, well, yeah, well, look, fine, that's fine. I'm happy that he didn't go to Philadelphia. That's my
That was
big
what you were
thing
worried about.
is, yeah, I'm like, usually they pick kind of around about us. I don't want to like someone that I like to go to like Washington or Philadelphia or someone that I'm going to have to see a lot, because if they turn into out to be like some superstar, like it's been that way with like a couple of guys that have gone to like Philadelphia, and I'm like, damn it, I liked that player, and now I'm going to have to hate them, and it's really it really pissed me off. But look, I'm happy for him to go to the Sharks, as far away from Pittsburgh as humanly possible, and that's fine. That's all good.
And you drafted twins.
Yeah, we did. Like, so Pittsburgh drafts Liam Ruck, which of the two brothers was consensus to be thought the better one. Basically, Marcus is considered the bad one of the two, but as a pair, they've been kind of interesting. Like very high, scoring pedigree, not flawless players by any means, but I like the idea of having the two of them together and them together being better than the sum of their parts. I'm not necessarily expecting them to be the next coming of the Sedin twins or anything like that. That would be fantastic if it turned out to be the case. I don't think that that's probably likely to happen, but it's still kind of cool to to have both of them. I knew that Pittsburgh had an early pick in the second round, and there were a few people talking about players who could potentially still be available in that round, who some people had mocked a lot higher. So it's just like, well, I'm happy if they take Marcus. If they move up and take one of these guys or whatever, there was always a chance that Marcus was still going to be available at 54, which was the middle of the second round pick that Pittsburgh actually had. But like I can't blame them for not wanting to take that risk. I think it's fun.
The weird bit about
There's a
the
few people who are
Rucks.
saying like,
If
if you took the first one, you can get the second one whenever you want, basically. But
Yeah, the weird bit about the Rucks for me is that they almost treated it when they were talking in the drafting process like, if you don't draft Liam and Marcus, it's not going to work. Like they basically made Marcus Ruck sound like he can't breathe if Liam isn't there.
If isn't in the room,
all the way through the coverage, it was like they've grown up together. They are never apart. And I'm sitting there going, that's going to make dating really weird. And they do everything together. They could not bear to be apart. And I'm sitting there going, if you draft one, you've got to draft both, because another team jumps up and tries to take one of them, and it's not going. But they just poor Marcus Ruck was made to sound like he's never played hockey in his life.
I know, poor guy. Like, look, I think that, rightfully so, like there is some element of, people talking about that him, not being, having quite the same level as his brother. But I think that if nothing else, even if they just turn out to be, a couple of depth players or whatever, I think that it's a fun story regardless. Like it's a fun, swing for them to have made. I'm happy for them to take a swing on upside. These aren't like, oh, it's a fun story, they're grinding kind of, bottom liners or whatever. Like these are guys with a scoring pedigree who have that, that twin telepathy kind of thing that the Sedins have, even if they're never going to be quite that same level. That just having that to watch, I think will be fun regardless. So I'm excited to see them. I'm hoping that they'll, make it to the big club in a few years' time. But we'll see what happens.
And the other one that was interesting, just as the last moment before we move on for me, Jackson cover. That was the one that Ottawa had to pick. If they couldn't move that pick, that was the one they had to pick. That was where they got the pick back. And they pick a player who, up until 5 years ago, hadn't played on ice.
Yeah.
Was roller hockey. Like was roller hockey. Doesn't come from a background of ice hockey in any way, shape, or form. Didn't start playing roller hockey until 5 years ago. Like This is somebody who really sort of, had no experience. So interesting. I thought it was fascinating as a decision.
Yeah, no, a few fun stories at least coming out of the draft. I'll be interested to see how many of these players,
because
are actually enlisted.
There were some trades to be had. So we'll start with Rangers. So the New York Rangers acquired Marcus Pettersson from the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah.
I think we're maybe well behind each other in terms of lag at the moment. I don't know if it might be worth. All right, I will do a little bit of talking while Chris tries to fix his computer issues. The New York Rangers acquire Marcus Pettersson from Vancouver for a conditional 2030 first round pick, which feels like forever away, but is really only like 3 drafts away. But I'm curious and interested about this, what the perceived value on Marcus Pettersson was, because this was kind of a lot higher than I was expecting that people would get from a Marcus Pettersson deal. Oh, look, I'm on a weird kind of either side of the thing here now while Chris comes back in. From a handful of trades which happened, which were for kind of depth pieces, I kind of really expected that Marcus Pettersson, I think that at the height of his career when he left Pittsburgh, I don't think his value was this high. So that's an interesting one. The condition, I believe, is that it can't be a top 10 pick from Vancouver, which by 2030, hopefully it's not. But look, it's Vancouver, so who knows? I think that's an odd one. I think the Vancouver got a lot of value there that I wasn't kind of expecting them to get. The Rangers, were also busy. They traded Vincent Trocheck to Utah for Sean Durzi, Cole Beaudoin? I've never said that word name out loud. Beaudoin, that's fantastic. And a conditional 2027 third round pick. We knew that the Vincent Trocheck deal was going to drop at some point in time. Was this kind of what you were expecting to see?
I don't know what I expected to see out of the Trocheck deal. I thought they would have. It's a weird one because they moved. So one of my big problems with the Rangers, we've talked about this before, is I think the Rangers have struggled with centers. Like, they don't have any. So what they did was get rid of a center and replace him with a defenseman who's in a win now sort of phase. Like, you're not getting Sean Durzi as a bit of a reclamation rebuilding project. You're not getting him as we want to be a middling team. You put Sean Durzi on a defense that you want to be good. I thought they would have gone out and got a center, bring someone back who can play, or at least get pieces you can trade to get someone who can play down the middle. Because, I'll mention it now because I've only got him in the other notables here. Joe Veleno is not like, if you're running Joe Veleno as your second line center, you're in trouble.
That's real bad.
And this is the weird thing for me with the Rangers. So the Rangers went out and because we didn't put it there because of the draft, but the Rangers go out and the Rangers also get the rights to Pavel Dofeyev and then sign him to a $11 million 8-year deal. Right?
Yeah,
so they go out to get a key scorer. But who's giving him the puck?
Yeah.
And this is we're back at Panarin land. Like, we're back at Panarin land of, I thought one of the problems with Panarin is, well, apart from the fact that, the other problems, who's giving him the puck? He was driving play. He can't score. He's driving the play.
Yeah. And then if he still had, if they still had Panarin there, that might be a good combination of of the two to have. I think that there's maybe some suggestion that JT Miller might be moving back to center. He might have to.
He's going to.
Giving this lineup, but yeah, look, it's a thin roster at this point for sure.
I don't know what I thought they'd get back. I don't think that's a good return. I think they needed something more back there, and I
just don't think that he had any value anymore. I just don't think Trocheck at this point had. It's surprising. Trocheck was the one that I thought maybe they would get that first round pick for, not paying for Marcus Pedersen kind of thing, like that kind of swap. Maybe I don't know.
So let's talk about Pedersen, because I wasn't here obviously when you were talking about Pedersen, but it's a bit like the Dursey pick. Okay, so you've got Sean Dursey, great, and you've got Marcus Pedersen. Okay, why? Like, why? Never has a team more clearly said Igor is saving us. Like, this is we joke about it all the time with the Rangers. This is an Igor Shesterkin is responsible for the well-being of the New York Rangers next year.
Yeah.
Right. They will go as far as he will take them, because this is not it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I liked Marcus Pedersen in his time in Pittsburgh. Like, the last year that he was in Pittsburgh, he was very good, and he kind of priced himself out of staying there realistically. But he just hasn't really been the same since. I don't know if going to New York is going to be a good enough environment to kind of bring him back to being good, but he was pretty bad recently. So we'll see whether he can turn it around.
I'm thoroughly confused by this one, and especially since it was only last year that he got the deal out of Vancouver. Like, I don't quite get what the hell they were thinking on this one. It's a weird one, and I'm stalling because what's next. So
I know you don't want to talk about it, but let's get through
it.
Right. Let's rip the Band-Aid off.
All right. San Jose Sharks acquire Darnell Nurse from the Edmonton Oilers for Shahir Mukhamadullin and Zach Sharp. Okay.
I will say, firstly, thank you for taking the bullet for us, because I was nervous the amount of times that Pittsburgh was being mentioned as a potential destination.
You have no idea how many people I have heard from today who were like, "Thank you."
I was biting my nails this morning, being like, "Please don't."
The late arrivals podcast, which is a Duck-centric podcast, give them a listen. They tweeted out something which was hands up. They put up a thing going, marked safe from trading for Darnell Nurse. And they're like, reshare if your team is safe from Darnell Nurse. And I responded to them with, I'd love to say yes, but unfortunately. Look, okay. Let me copium and all. Let me explain.
Yeah.
I don't like that it was straight up for no retained money. I hate that they did not get retention. And basically allowed Edmonton to go and get pieces. Like, that's dumb. But Mukhamadullin could not stay in a Sharks defensive lineup that was terrible.
Yeah.
I like Mukhamadullin, but he's not a needle mover. He's not going to be a piece that's going to move any form of needle in Edmonton as a defensive piece. He's not better than what they've got, and that's saying something.
Well, we talked about it when he was drafted. Like, he wasn't a sure shot to be an NHL player, and I think there's a good possibility that he may just end up being one of those AAA guys who's up and down.
He shows glimpses. He'll have a couple of good games, and then he'll do something incredibly stupid, and then it just falls off. And so they send him back down. Then they bring him back up. Then they send him back down. I've gone through all of the stages of grieving today, and I've gone through denial. I've gone through bartering. I've done all of them, but I've kind of come to rest on this, and the other deals we'll talk about in a bit. I'm okay with it, and my reasoning for being okay with it. And there's a weird discourse going on Sharks Twitter right now that says that now you got to fire Mike Greer. He may have had a brilliant draft, but he can't pay players to save himself, and he's bottlenecking the future by bringing these contracts in. We don't have a defensive prospect that's ready to go next year. We don't, right? Luca Cagnotti is the one. He's going to play in the bottom six. So where Keaton Verhoff was drafted, they made it quite plain at the draft. He's going back. He's not coming out. He's staying. Like, he will go and do another year in junior. He'll go and do another year. And I like that. I don't want them to rush. So I am perfectly comfortable with leaving him out of it. The Sharks' defensive core with Darnell Nurse in it is better than the Sharks' defensive core with Darnell Nurse not in it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this year and next year, I think it makes them better, for sure.
So what made me feel better about it was when I was digging through it, I didn't realize that it wasn't a complete no trade. So it is a no trade for the next 12 months. as of season 27-28, it is a 10-team no trade. They will, if it is really, really, really problematic, they will be able to pay somebody to take that.
Yeah.
Right? Somebody will have to hit the floor. As the cap goes through the roof, somebody's got to hit the floor. Right? Also, and far more importantly, and this will come back when we talk about the Sharks and their deals today, the Celebrini and Smith extensions aren't this year. They are next year. By the time you do that, $24 million comes off the books next year in retained salary and all of those things. Eric Carlson finally disappears. Like that goes.
Yeah.
Right, that's gone. All of the retained salary except for Thomas Hurdle goes away. All of the buyouts go away. We are left with just the Thomas Hurdle. That's all we're left with on the books.
Yeah.
So we get $24 million back. Smith has to happen. And obviously Macklin will ask for whatever Macklin's going to ask for.
Yeah.
That's still, we've got $54 million in cap for next year. I'd like to know what pathways they're stifling. I think for the next 2 seasons, Darnell Nurse will be perfectly fine. It will be perfectly fine. The challenge comes when you do start needing the cap flexibility, how you move the contract. But a good general manager can. The other thing to note is if it goes really well, by year 4, that Darnell Nurse contract is about 7%. It's fine. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it. Like he's a serviceable defenseman. If he was making 5 or 6 million, it would be a fine contract.
And on the Sharks right now, that's kind of what he's doing.
Like, yeah, that's kind of it. Like, you know, on a roster where there's a shit like that was kind of my feelings of if he ended up in Pittsburgh. It's like, all right, well, he is actually probably an upgrade on a bunch of guys on the left hand side, and we have an absurd amount of cap space. I'm not too fussed about it. I think probably the reality is why he didn't end up on a bunch of other teams is that they all just wanted some salary retention, or they wanted something paid to take it on, and probably this deal was probably the only one that looked like it was a positive return for them.
And we didn't give up much. Like McMillan's not a lot. I liked him, but he's not a lot. Not a lot to give up. The defensive core is better with Darnell Nurse on it than it is without Darnell Nurse on it. He had a really good press conference where he talked openly about the fact that he was the one who got the big contract, and it's absolutely right that everyone held him to account for not being worth that money. And he said he hadn't been worth that money. And he's like, I wasn't playing to that level. I was not playing to what my contract is. And I understand the criticism. He goes, the change in speed and the change in destination will probably do me the world of good. And, I understand that when you get $9 million, you have to play to $9 million.
Yeah, people expect something from you.
I was happy with the fact he didn't duck it. The other thing, just before we move on, we'll move on in a second for those who are going, oh, for God's sake, Chris, stop talking about the Sharks. The last thing on that was I found it hilarious that a player who only a couple of years ago, when he was returned to San Jose, almost against his will, might I add, when the Sharks did that the trade that they did with the Rangers, I didn't expect that Barclay Goodrow would become the person that would sell Darnell Nurse on San Jose.
Yeah.
But apparently Barclay Goodrow was the one who said San Jose is a great organization. The people are fantastic. The clubhouse is fantastic. The roster's great. You're going to love playing in San Jose. And I'm like, I didn't have Barclay Goodrow selling San Jose to Darnell Nurse on my bingo card. That was not in the planning. All right, let's stop talking about the annoying team now, and let's talk about the teams that everyone loves. Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll start with this one. Acquired Nick Paul from the Tampa Bay Lightning for Dennis Hildeby, a 2028 third and a 2027 fourth. Now, the first thing I want to note here is it's almost like the Leafs have gone out in the last couple of years and tried to gather everyone that's ever caused them pain.
I think that they've also gone out this offseason and tried to basically send every goalie in their system away and just completely go blank slate and start entirely from scratch.
Miscellaneous goaltender that we're going to pretend hasn't signed there yet turned around and said, I must be the only goaltender in that room.
Yeah. It's
we'll talk about him in a minute.
No, there can be no one even in the vicinity that's ever played a game for you before.
Only his aura can be in the room.
Organization. But look, Nick Paul is a guy. Nick Paul is a guy who plays hockey. He's okay.
He's used to playing in blue and white. He's a friend of Darren Radish.
Yeah, I'm a little. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they had to add to acquire him. I feel like Tampa wins out on just losing I think it's like $3 million or something.
Well,
That
we
they
found
pulled.
out and we'll get to it, but
Yeah.
we found out why Tampa was losing all this money. But what I find, the other thing I found that was just looking at this trade and looking at what happens with the signings, and we'll come to it in a minute. It's almost like John Chaker sat down over this part of the offseason and went, the solution for the Toronto Maple Leafs is to do something different than what happened last year. Austin Matthews last year had to do some defensive duty. This year, Austin Matthews is not to set foot inside the defensive zone. Period.
Yeah.
But they just got players to stand behind Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
That's all they've done.
Right? Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Like, I think that Toronto are kind of just filling their middle to, basically bottom nine with just like guys on $2 to $3 million who
guys, just guys,
who are NHL players technically. I don't know why they had to pay. The only gripe I have for Toronto in this, and I know that people have feelings they thought they liked Hilderby. I don't care about that. I don't know why they had to pay Tampa for the privilege of taking their cap.
Yeah. I don't understand it. The other part of this that I find funny is that before the season, Toronto had 3 goaltenders, and everyone was agreed that the only the one goaltender that was absolutely jettisonable was Anthony Stolarz. And that's the one.
That's the one
that's the one they kept.
Yeah.
Right. They jettisoned Joseph Woll. They jettisoned Woll. They jettisoned Hilderby, and they've still got Anthony Stolarz, the one that everyone was like, "Oh, you just get rid of Stolarz and bring in another goaltender." Like that's the one that nobody would take. So that's a problem. Pittsburgh, then decided, because God knows Kyle Dubas loves his guys.
Yes,
Kyle Dubas got his guy.
Yeah, if there's something that Kyle Dubas will do, it'll be move back in a draft someone from Sioux, and acquire one of the guys who he's had previously. So Nick Robertson for a 2028 fourth, I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of the profile of player who he's been going out and getting, like the Chinnikov deal last year around about this time. It's a guy in his mid-20s who has, had what maybe is probably time for a change of scenery. Could potentially in a new environment have a little bit more upside. Nick Robertson, I think, from what I've seen, is someone who has like some deficiencies in his game that mean that he hasn't ever really fully quite found the spot for that spot like higher in the lineup, where he has a good finishing touch but just hasn't really found a spot for him. I think that probably this is a good environment for him if he can find himself on a scoring line. He could maybe get a peak at times with a Crosby or a Malkin, and if there's some chemistry there or something, that might work out. If nothing else, I think it's hard to say what his contract ask is, because he is a pending RFA. He still has to sign a new contract. I don't know what that looks like, so I'll hold off on speaking anything about that there. At the moment, I think Pittsburgh has like 5 RFAs to sign, so I think that's going to be a big part of their next coming few weeks.
So I think the interesting bit for me is that I think that in Toronto, the conversation was you can keep either Nick Robertson or Matthias Michelli, but you can't keep both. And they moved both. They got rid of both. Michelli's contract, I think, is 1.2 or something like that. It's a low deal. I think Robertson gets mid to late 2s, maybe.
I'm expecting probably 2.5.
Yeah, I reckon somewhere between 2.5 and like 2.75. I think is what Robertson comes in at, and look, I think there is a lot of upside if it can be unlocked. Kyle Dubas is the sort of general manager. Again, he knows what's good in his game. So I
if nothing else, it's a low cost gamble.
And it gives a potential chip if the Robertson saga doesn't end in Dallas. You can just reunite the brothers. So that's a simple solution to everything. It's in vogue at the moment. Also, Pittsburgh acquired Caden Korosek from the Vegas Golden Knights. Parker Wotherspoon, 50% retained. My question to you is why? Why on earth? Apart from the why in general,
why do people keep bailing out Vegas? Why is that?
Why on earth are you contributing to the Dylan Larkin Fund?
I know,
because that's what that is. All of the Vegas moves today is the Dylan Larkin Fund, and they're just clearing a Dylan Larkin. If you look at their cap space, they're over by 7 something.
I think,
but it's not over because they'll have LTIR.
Yeah, I think once they have LTIR, they have something like 8.8 or something at the moment, and Dylan Larkin's 8.7.
They've created they're about 750,000 under what Larkin's contract is, but they'll trade someone off when they move him.
Yeah.
So
for sure,
it's an exact Dylan Larkin hole.
Sized hole, yeah. So to put this into context, Parker Witherspoon was already earning like $1 million. So 50% retain. It's a $500K deal that he is playing this 1 year in Vegas for, which is under the league minimum. Of course, there's no other way to get this without another team retaining. There's no way to get a cheaper defenseman than Parker Witherspoon. I will say. I really liked Witherspoon. He came in as kind of an underrated guy who had played depth minutes, who the organization, basically evaluated that, might be able to play better in a with a higher role. And he did. He came in and was, a good pairing partner for Erik Karlsson. I think that's a big part of all of the point difference that he picked up in the past year. I'm not expecting him to put up 30 points again, unless he is somehow ending up playing first line, minutes again on and being paired with whoever is healthy on Vegas. But the reality is that probably he was going to I think probably price himself out in a year's time. I imagine that he'll be going to UFA and expecting a big deal if he's going to continue to play effectively first line minutes. That would have been potentially valuable for Pittsburgh. I think that it would have been fine to hold on to him, but I think I understand the Korczak move from the perspective of the long term. Korczak is 3 years younger. He has a similar profile to Wotherspoon as being a guy who is playing, more sheltered, like lower line minutes and excelling in them, and potentially could, in the right deployment, outperform those expectations. If nothing else, he is a right-hand D, so he will probably still be playing third line minutes on Pittsburgh, but he fits their profile of timeline better than Wotherspoon does, who probably isn't going to be there next year. Caden Korczak currently is the longest tenured player on the Pittsburgh Penguins with a 4-year deal. So he has the next 4 years at $3.25 million. So he's 25 years old. That brings him to his age 29 season. So he is the right age group for what the Penguins are trying to go into, rather than being a 30-year-old, which Wotherspoon will be at the end of this deal, and is on a more kind of cost-controlled deal for that time for the role. So I understand it from that perspective. I would have preferred to have both of them, but clearly that was the price to pay to shore that up. Right now, the Penguins, however, do have like 1 million right-hand defensemen, and I feel like that's going to get rectified in some way, and I'm not quite sure what that is yet. I don't know if there's an Erik Karlsson deal still coming.
I had a thought. At one point had a thought. I don't think it's going to happen now. I had a thought that I actually thought that the Oilers would go out and get Erik Karlsson.
Yeah,
but
I mean, they've got teams that would be interested.
They've got $7 million left in cap space, but the talk is that they're still going to pick up another forward. So. Or maybe 2, and there's some talk about like Giroux still out there.
There's a handful of guys. We'll talk about it at the end after the signing.
We'll talk about guys that are still available. So speaking of like contracts and where things are, Nashville acquired Maverick Bork and Ilya Labushkin from the Dallas Stars for a 2027 second and a 2028 third. Now, Dallas is in a really bad spot, and we should we should talk about the fact that Dallas is in a really bad spot because this has been weird. So obviously, Jason Robertson is still unsigned. He is an RFA. He is still not signed a contract. The conversation is that he was asking for somewhere around the 14, that they were saying 12. He was not prepared to lower. People who should know, Daniel from the group, talking about the fact that they've cleared those players out to try to make the space. The Dallas Stars still have 10 million in cap, so they're under what the ask is for a start.
Yeah, they're even under their offer.
And they've got players they still need to re-sign as well. Well, they're probably not going to re-sign them. All of this money is going to go into Robertson. It's also the third time in 3 years that they've sort of put the feelers out to see if anyone wants to take him. Which I can't understand why an elite scorer like that every year, Dallas are like, would you like a shiny Jason Robinson? Now, I genuinely don't know how Dallas is going to get this done. I have no concept on how they're getting this done.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We heard today that there was a potential offer in place for a Thomas Harley and Zach Werenski swap that Werenski turned down, which we'll talk about a little bit later with the maybe as quickly mentioned now. Apparently, Columbus have come out now and said, like, in the off season there was some kind of essentially. We had a chat with Zach and he was unsure about his future here. And we decided do you want us to go out and we'll look at some options and see if that makes sense for you. And now that they've kind of seen what's on the market, Zach has kind of decided, no, actually, I'm happy here. I'm happy to
No.
Please forget about it.
It's Werenski.
They did delete that one. They did delete that version of it where they misspelled his name and then reposted it a few minutes later.
And they also, after all of that, posted the Men in Black thing with the
one moment. Forget that you saw that.
You saw that.
Yeah. Which, look, fair enough. They're trying whatever they can to make some wiggle room to make it work for Robertson. Props to him for not coming down to make it work for them. I feel like there is an unreasonable expectation of people that players have to take a several $1 million discount for the good of the team. These players only have this option. I think that there's been a little bit of speculation from some people about maybe there's maybe they trade Erik Karlsson or whatever and they get Robinson, but I don't think that Pittsburgh have the pieces for that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think if Pittsburgh does make a trade, someone like Elias Pettersson makes more sense for them. But I think Robertson, I don't know. Yeah, Robertson, I don't know how many teams realistically have the pieces that they would be looking for. And also, especially at this point in time, after all of these signings have been made, have the cap space, have the situation that Robertson will agree to go to.
I think one of the things I find really interesting is that Jim Nill, who is universally always hailed as one of the greatest general managers the world has ever seen, Jim Nill let himself get into a really bad situation with no way out of the situation. They were non-existent today as an entity in free agency because they can't be, because they're trying to re-sign their goal scorer and they can't re-sign their goal scorer. And you've got, the problem they've got there as well is obviously Mikko Rantanen is there and they've got Mikko Rantanen at 12. If I'm Jason Robertson, I'm looking at that and going, I'm more than that. I'm definitely more than the 12.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just a matter of who else they have to shed. They've sent Maverick Bork and Ilya Lyubushkin out of town, which I'm sure that they would prefer not to do.
But there's no money.
For some picks, but I just don't know who else they're going to move. Unless they're going to find a team that's going to take on Matt Duchene or someone. I just don't know.
But even still, Matt Duchene has a full no move for the next year.
He does this year.
Matt Duchene, Tyler Sagan, and look, he's on injured reserve at the moment. I'm assuming he's back. Rupe Hintz, Matt Duchene all have
the only one that can move is Wyatt Johnston, who they're very much not going to move. So
you're not going to move Wyatt Johnston, so that's a problem. And then the only other ones you can really move, Asa Lindell has a no trade.
I mean, and this is why Harley is part of the discussion, is because for the next few years he doesn't have a no move.
The Asa Lindell one is ridiculous because 32 5.25, you'd assume you go, okay, if you're looking for a player to move to make the cap fit, blah, 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 you can probably move Asa Lindell and have a younger defenseman in that spot. You can probably get away with that if you want to have Robertson scoring your goals. but they can't move him because he's got to, he must approve any trade, and I doubt he's going to approve leaving Dallas. So I don't actually know how Dallas unpicks this. I think it's much harder than a lot of people are making out at the moment. And I think if it was any general manager other than Jim Neal, he would be getting absolutely roasted right now. But it's Jim Neal, and so you don't.
Yeah, they basically got themselves into this situation by bringing in Mika Rantanen, who wasn't in their long-term plans, and then kind of going, we'll work it out later. And now they're in the shit of having
a no move. Like having a no move. Like, that's ridiculous. Like Florida. So Florida went out and acquired Jacob Markstrom and Angus Crookshank from the Devils for Evan Rodriguez, Jesper Boquist, and Ben Steeves. Let's talk about the big part of this trade, which is, of course, Evan Rodriguez has finally moved after all of the speculation consistently that every trade from Florida. I can't wait to see what happens now. When teams are talking about a Florida trade, I can't wait to see who they put in the trade, because literally Evan Rodriguez was the only non-contract protected player.
Yeah, so it was the only guy with any kind of cap and to be able to.
They're like, they're going to go out and they're going to trade for Connor Hellebuck. And it's like, well, what's the trade? And they're like, well, it's Evan Rodriguez. And I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah. Markstrom, this is one of the funniest timelines. Markstrom, of course, finds his way back to Florida.
Back again.
Back to Florida, playing under Roberto Luongo as his coach, basically. Full circle. After the Devils paid far too much money to put him on a contract, and he didn't really look good on that contract. Like we will talk in a minute about why the Devils felt the need to go and get Markstrom, and then acquiring the rights to Akira Schmid, which it's only the rights, he's still not signed. But I like this move a hell of a lot for the Devils. I think this is a really good move for the Devils. Yeah. Like Evan Rodriguez, look, I make fun of the fact all the time that he's always being thrown in trade as player.
Yeah.
But he's solid. Like Jesper Boquist is solid. Ben Steeves is solid guy. And the Devils kind of needed a bit more just solid guy, because they had a lot of flash, but nothing rigid down the middle. So
I mean, look, I wouldn't say that about Nico Hischier, but regardless of to that,
no, but he's one guy on one line.
Yeah. I mean, like when you can shed a $6 million goalie contract that isn't working out for you, that's a win, even if they didn't get anything back.
I thought it was funny that Florida decided that the value pickup was Jacob Markstrom, which is hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, look, we talked about it's not a good goalie market. There's not a lot of good goalies available, and that's kind of what they got. They'll make moves again through the season to try and remedy it, but they'll give it a shot.
In a minute, we will talk about a goaltender who was referred to by someone today as elite, and it's hilarious. But let's get to the favorite thing of the day.
Yes,
which was the offer sheet.
Yes,
and it is the most brilliant look. It is the most brilliant piece of pettiness that I think I've seen in a long time in the NHL. So New Jersey offer sheet Barrett Hayton.
Who was the Carolina? The last good offer sheet that we've seen actually signed was
I think it was Edmonton.
No,
Edmonton.
Oh, okay.
Remember when they offer sheeted the two defensemen at Edmonton to get him out?
Yes. There was that. Yeah. But I mean, I would say the Kotkaniemi one had a similar level of spike.
Yes,
I would put it that way. But yeah, so 1 year at 4.775. It's a second round pick if Utah doesn't match it. If they added literally $666 to that is where it goes up to the next bracket of compensation, which is a beautiful move
for the Devils.
That's a lovely little stat. So yeah, apparently they had this deal essentially done at the draft, and then it fell through. And they're like, no, screw it, we're going to try and still get Hayton.
And look, in my most recent NHL playthrough, might I add, Barrett Hayton was the superstar center that led my New York Rangers to victory. So, this is a great pick. I think it's a really good depth pickup in terms of down that middle. Nico Hischier on the top line. Barrett Hayton's,
Yeah, if they can have him like as a third line center, like that's incredible depth to be able to not have to, to deal with that. If they, if you've got already it locked up in your kind of down the middle of Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, that and coming in behind that or whatever and getting those minutes, like he might be able to succeed. The my favorite part of this, however, though, is the kind of lock that they have created here, because obviously, like, you can say like, oh well, obviously Utah matches this, it's a totally fine amount to have to pay. But if Utah does actually match it and sign him to this deal, it means that they can't trade him for the next year. If the original team signs that deal, they are stuck on the roster there for the next year, which means that Hayden becomes a UFA at the end of that deal and essentially walks for nothing. So they're really in a no-win kind of situation. If they actually sign it, they basically guarantee that he can walk in a year's time. And if they don't sign it, they just get their second round pick. So they're kind of fucked either way.
Yeah, it's not a good spot for them to be in. So, but like, it's again clever. And Sonny Meta, 4D chess.
Yeah.
So let's get into the signings now. So we're going to start with I'm going to start with the Bowen Byram one, because that actually happened today.
Yeah.
And look, we're going to talk about some contracts that some people consider to be bad. And Jojo, I know for a fact you're hanging around to hear what I have to say about the Sharks and what happened defensively with the Sharks. And all I can say is we didn't sign Bowen Byram to a 12.5 million 6-year deal with a full no move. We didn't do that. We didn't do that. That is not good. And all the talk was that he was going to hang around and see what Cal McCarr got first. And that offers, like Cal McCarr's going to get more than that, obviously, but going to go buy his jersey. Well, he's going to be there. So
yeah, well, that's the thing. I think you're right that he is going to be there for a long time. Look, I honestly, I hope that this works out for Chicago. I think that obviously it's a lot of money. He is going to get every minute that he can stand on this lineup. He is going to get every power play minute. He's going to get every 5-on-5 minute. I hope that he breaks out and succeeds and is a number one defenseman. I just don't know that he has done enough at this point to indicate that he is capable of this, making to this contract.
He's going to be stapled to Connor Bedard.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that he'll do fine. He is probably going to do better than Seth Jones did in the role. But I don't know what else to expect apart from that, to be honest. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to make.
You know what was a good contract, however? Ivan Demidov.
Oh, yeah.
Demidov extension, 8 years, 9.15 million. I really hope the Will Smith contract comes in at that for San Jose, because that is an absolute steal of a contract.
Yeah, that is an absolute haircut. That's an absolute haircut.
If you look at that roster, by the way,
that's hire your agent kind of contract.
That core in Montreal is on absolutely ridiculous money. Like that. They are on stupid contracts. Like Nick Suzuki's on 7,875. Cole Caulfield's on 7,850. Slavkovsky's on 7,6. Even Deneau's on 5,5, and like Josh Anderson.
I would say it's a similar kind of setup to Carolina, who I think have the best contract structure.
It is, and that doesn't kick into next year either. So this year is still on 940. Like it's just nuts, and
it's definitely all lined up for them. It's gonna require a bunch of those guys to take another step. They could be a really good team if that all comes together. But we've been saying that about Montreal for like 10 years. So.
Yeah, they do need a top line center, but they still need a top line center. I don't care how many people try to sit there and convince me that Nick Suzuki is the top line center. He's not. But you can try to convince me that Nick Suzuki is the top line center. He is not the top line center, and you need a good one. And if they get that, if you've got Nick Suzuki playing second center, absolutely great, right? You are flying. And that's why I said, like, with that contract, I didn't say that looking at the contracts coming up, I said Will Smith for me is the comparable for Demidov, because I want San Jose's second center coming in at that. Like Macklin is getting Macklin money. Macklin is getting whatever Macklin wants. Also, just quickly, the whisper that was going around today was that Connor Bedard had opened his conversations in Chicago with 17, using Kaprizov, Kaprizov as the if he got 17. Yeah. I'm worth 17.
I think there's a lot of forward to make that deal.
Yeah, and San Jose is sitting there going, "Please bring that contract down, because we're going to use you as the bar for what we're going to give." So, look, I don't think Macklin will ask for that anyway. I actually think Macklin is going to ask. I think Macklin ends up on 15.
I suspect that both of them end up around about that point.
I reckon celebrating at 15
Macklin of the two, but
yeah,
I would say probably 14 to 15.
Nico Hischier, 5 years by 11.7 in New Jersey. Interestingly enough, with this one, there is no protection.
Interesting.
There is no protection on the Nico Hischier contract. That is an interesting move.
Odd one. So I like Nico Hischier a lot as a player. He's not going to be someone who necessarily puts up a bazillion points, but is a good very good two-way kind of player. I think that's a fair contract for him, to be honest.
It's a weird one though, because he's got protection at the moment. He's got a 10-team protection this year. When the new contract kicks in, he's got 11.7, but there's no protection. I wonder if that's
probably a little bit of it is that if you will give you a little bit more if you don't take a protection.
I wonder if Sonny.
Usually it's like if you want trade protection, you've got to drop 500,000 off or whatever.
I wonder if Sonny Meta is going to basically, because one of the problems they had obviously in New Jersey is some of the players they did want to shed, they can't because of the contract protections. Dougie Hamilton. So. Yeah. I wonder if Sonny Meta has basically said to all of the agents, we are not going to deal with clauses. We're just not going to do it. We will give you a little bit more money, but we are not dealing with clauses because we want flexibility. And we also want, there was a really interesting conversation today about, and it was Jeff Merrick talking about it, about the idea of players weaponizing the no move clause now, on the idea of, teams used it to control. And they're like, players now obviously going, I'm not going to re-sign and I've got trade protection, so I can pick where I go and you get nothing back. And they're like, in the next lot of arbitration, they said they're not going to be able to get the players to get rid of that. Obviously, they're never going to give that up. But there was a suggestion that teams be allowed to buy the clause out, or once a player does the whole I'm not re-signing thing, that it then sparks something where maybe it goes from being a full protection to there's a 10-team list automatically. Yeah. Because as they said, the problem with it is that it's bottlenecks up the NHL completely when you get the players get the massive contract and the no move clause. My answer to it is just don't hand them out. I've never understood it. Doug Wilson, the reason why the Sharks had the fall off that the Sharks had was Doug Wilson hamstrung the team with 15 billion clauses, and they couldn't move anybody off the roster when it's
the tricky thing about it, and the reason that they do it, obviously, as we talked about, is those small savings. And the teams that are giving that to them are the teams that think that they are going to be competing and up against the cap. So it's like, well, any little bit that we can save is good. We're not going to move this guy. We'll worry about it later. We'll do, we'll take the hit later or whatever. Maybe I won't even have the job in 3 years' time. So who gives a shit? I'll take, I'll give him 7 million rather than 8 million and a full no move clause or a partial no move clause or whatever. But I have no problem with it for your franchise players, for your guys who you have no reason to move. It's when your like second line winger or whatever ends up with a full no move clause because it shaves like 500,000 off their deal. I was like, I feel like that's gonna fuck you over. It's gonna fuck the organization over at least at some point in time.
So let's talk about that, because there's a team that did a bit of that today. So Toronto. So first of all, the big one for them, Sergei Bobrovsky, 3 years, 7 million with a full no move. Bold. We'll come back to that in a minute.
Yeah, he's old. He's very old. I hope that he lasts, but he's going to be 40 something by the time that deal ends.
Yeah,
how old is he now? 37, I think.
37, I think.
Yeah, he is 37 now before the deal even starts. He'll be 41 by the time it finishes, I'm pretty sure.
I think everyone kind of forgets that Bobrovsky has not been solidly good for the past few years. He's had flashes.
Yeah.
He didn't start the year the year that he dominated the playoffs. He didn't start in net. It was Alex Lyon.
Yeah.
And
He was a bit
then
more rested, I guess.
Yeah, and then they've brought in other goaltenders all the way along, and they've sort of platooned them a bit. And Bobrovsky has been shaky. He's had stretches where he remembers that he's Bobrovsky, and then he's had long stretches where he remembers that he was also Bobrovsky, but from a different ilk. And you know, ask John Tortorella what happens when Sergei Bobrovsky forgets to be a goaltender. So I wonder how motivated
he'll either get you fired or win you the Jack Adams. That's
I wonder how motivated he is.
Experience.
Colton Sissons, 2 years at 4.25 with a 10-team no trade. Why are you giving Colton Sissons any form of contract protection?
Why? I mean, on 2 years, I guess, like...
There's another one coming up that's more insane than that. We'll talk about it in a second.
Jack
Roslovic, 2 years, $4 million, and Teddy Bluger, 2 years at 2.5. I insist that Teddy Bluger was hired as a favor to Steve Dangle because he's his favorite Latvian.
I liked Teddy Bluger when he was on Pittsburgh. That was like fucking 10 years ago.
Exactly. Teddy Bluger's been around forever.
He's not who he was.
And Jack Roslovic is always one of those players that everyone's like, oh yeah, you know, he feels like he should be much better. He fits into that category of Jack Roslovic's a player that you're like, you think he's really good, and then you look at
he had a brief stint of like being like relevant on Winnipeg for like 5 years ago. Yeah.
And then the one that baffled me, Brandon Duhaime, 3 years at 2.6 with a no move for the first year and a 10-team no trade in years 2 and years 3. What are you doing?
I guess.
Why does he have a full no trade? That is insanity.
That is, that's an odd one. I don't really understand why that was necessary. I don't know that necessarily he is going to be someone they are planning to move, but
it's so dumb.
Yeah.
Toronto handed out some very weird deals. I don't absolutely hate what they did, but I don't quite understand the way they have filled the back end with a bunch of protectors. So if you go down the roster now for the Leafs, the only forwards that are not protected are Matthew Nyes, Jack Roslovic, Teddy Bluger, Stephen Lorentz, Easton Cowan, and Zach McEwen.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody else, Dakota Joshua, Matt Stomey, Nick Paul, they all have some level of protection.
As defense, all of their defense,
Only Troy Stetcher, who they signed to an extension the other day, he is the only defenseman, and Emile Andre hasn't got protection yet. But give it time.
Yeah, this is the team for the next few years. Like they're not making many changes to this.
Bobrovsky has a no move, and Stolarz has a 16-team no trade.
They better hope this is good. I'm not 100% sure.
This is the Toronto Maple Leafs that will decide what happens to Austin Matthews.
I look at that roster and kind of go, it's all right.
All right, it's time. It's time. Jojo, I'm ripping the Band-Aid off now. San Jose. Okay, unsurprisingly, I don't hate what they did. I actually really like what they did. Jacob Trouba, 4 years at 8.25. Is that an overpay? Yes, but there are a couple of caveats with that. 2 years no move, 16-team no trade, 12-team no trade. If you want a defense that's going to look better, you probably need, if you're in the stage the Sharks are at, you're probably going to have to overpay some people. You're probably going to have to bring in players that would like to go elsewhere, probably a little bit cheaper, and especially if you're bringing them to California, or in this case, keeping them in California, you're paying them a level that means the tax is not a problem. Yeah. Trouba, from what we've heard, the Ducks weren't prepared to bring him back at all. He would have probably got an offer like this from somewhere else, but wanted to stay in California for family reasons. The Sharks, I don't like the idea of, big tough hockey and beat people up in the. But let's face it, They went out and got Ryan Reeves last year because they wanted to make sure that their young guys were protected and they thought they wanted them a bit of toughness. I would much rather have Darnell Nurse and Jacob Trouba hitting people on the ice than Ryan Reeves because they can at least play hockey. And so I don't actually have a problem with the Trouba deal because, again, Trouba and Nurse, that's a lot of money for those two players, but you can get rid of the last couple of seasons of both of them if it goes really badly. And they are there to do a job. They are there to, A, work with players like Dickinson to get him better, and they are there to make sure that Smith and Celebrini and everyone else, A, is protected, but B, if you send them out there to hit and hit and hit and hit, and then you put a Celebrini and Smith and all of these guys skating at them at 1,000,000 miles an hour, it's hard to live with. And they want the Sharks to be hard to live with.
Yeah, they can't just keep running out like 6 guys on a $1 million contract who have no experience in the NHL. I get it. I would prefer Jacob Trouba from 5 years ago than who he is now. But I think for the role, it's totally serviceable. They have money to burn. I don't hate it.
We've still got 14 million in cap space.
Yeah,
like seriously.
It's one of the few, I feel like it's one of the few teams that makes total sense that they would sign that deal. I think that's
the Mason Marchment deal. The Mason Marchment deal's copped a bit as well because people are like, oh, but where's he playing in the lineup? Because now they've got 10 forwards and blah, 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 blah. I don't actually have a problem with this one either. I've like 5 years, 6, 7, 5 mil, 2 years, no move, and then a 13 team in 3, 4, and 5. It's a fair bit of money to pay him, but he is a power forward as opposed to the finesse forwards they've got. So it's something different.
I don't hate it.
It offers. It's too much for Mason Marchment, but it offers the Sharks the opportunity lineup-wise to do some interesting things. Like, for example, you could end up with a line where you can play, if you play, say, for example, on the third line, you could end up having Barclay Goodrow playing on that line with Kiefer Sherwood and then Mason Marchment. That's a truculent line. Like, that's just a line that's annoying and a bit painful. And so I don't hate it either. I don't think it actually blocks a pathway for anyone in the Sharks that's going to be worth it because you also want competition. You don't want to hand these guys the spot. Earn it. Get out in the ice and earn it. And then Eric Comrie, 2 years at 1.15. I like this. I like Eric Comrie. I think there are a lot of teams that are going to roll 3 goaltenders. And I think the Sharks are going to be one of those. And I don't hate any of the moves. We overpaid for Trouba. We obviously took too much money on when we took on the Nurse contract. Is the defense of the San Jose Sharks today better than it was yesterday? Yes, that's it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely better. I am 100% on board with it. And I don't think that it's the albatross that a lot of people were sort of out there screaming about. We've got the cap space. We will have the cap space. All of the other contracts coming up are staggered. Like there was someone going, oh, but then we've got a problem because then they've got to give the contracts to, and they named like, Ivar Stenberg. And I'm like, he's got 3 years of ELC. You're fine.
Yeah.
3 years of ELC for Stenberg. And they're like, oh, and what about Misa? And I'm like, he's got 2 years of ELC. Like they're not all up at the same time.
At minimum.
They're not all up at the same time.
They're not even signed to a contract yet. No. But yeah, look, it's fine. They paid what they had to pay to get what they needed to get, and I'm okay with it. There weren't really better options out there for them. Who were they going to get really that was going to make it?
They weren't. Look, I talked about trying to trade for one of the big ones. San Jose's not in a spot. This is the thing that I think a lot of the people in the fan base need to understand. We're not in the spot where we are contending for the cup immediately. We are trying to make the playoffs. I think we will this year, but we are trying to make the playoffs. I actually think we might get in over the Ducks because the Ducks did not have a very good offseason at all. Their moves are a bit weird. But I think that for San Jose, I think that the goal is get into the playoff. They're not in a win now mode. Yeah, so if you're not in, if
stabilize and improve and be better,
and as Chicago is showing, this is the hard bit of a rebuild.
Yeah,
right. Going from getting all the assets to getting yourself into the playoffs is the hard bit. And you're not just going to make the jump. You're not just going to do that. Edmonton. So after the Sharks decided to help out, they went out and used that money to get Ryan Shea. 5 years, $4 million. 2 years,
I
no
like
trade.
I like Ryan Shea.
Yeah.
He was good on Pittsburgh. They weren't going to pay him that money,
No.
obviously. I think that's fine for him to go out and get that. I think that's a. I'm happy for him. It's a good, decent deal.
Then they went out and got the elite goaltender that Connor McDavid has been missing all of his life, Frederick Anderson.
Yeah.
1 year, 1 million. It's a 1.8 million bonus. On top of that, 15 team no trade. And they also went out and traded for the rights for Devin Levi. So they're going to try to have him as the reclamation project there as well.
Well, it's interesting. They've got 4 goalies basically on the roster right now. Assuming, well, actually, technically, I think Connor Ingram, I think, is a UFA, so I don't think he's probably not being re-signed. So they have 3. So between Tristan Jarry, who they've said today is going to still be in the mix, Frederick Anderson and Devin Levi, they're not paying much for Anderson and Levi. I think that's fine.
I think Anderson's better than what they've had.
Yeah,
but I also don't think he's the elite goaltending that they're looking for.
No, I think if they can have a little rotation of the 3 of them, if they can have a little rotation of the 3 of them, maybe they'll get something functional out of that. I don't know.
I feel like they're going for. Again, I talked about it before with San Jose. Platooning is going to be what some teams are doing for elite goaltending. And I think this is what Edmonton's going to try now is we're going to run 3 of them and we're just going to see maybe 4. I wouldn't put it past Connor Ingram to take a 2-way deal. It wouldn't shock me.
Possibly.
And then just be part of that mix. Then Tampa. So Tampa was sneaky today, but Tampa, I think, might have come out of this better than a hell of a lot of other teams. So first of all, the Ilya Mikheyev deal, I like that deal. I like Mikheyev as a player. 4 years at 385. I really like that contract and I like what he brings. I think that, there are a lot of people in Toronto that were hoping that Mikheyev might find his way back to them in free agency. I know that Edmonton were hoping that Mikheyev might find his way there. I think Tampa's a great landing spot.
Yeah, he's older than I thought he was. In my mind, Ilya Mikheyev
he came in late,
25, but he was 31. So
he was a late age player when he entered the league.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense for them. And the big one, John Carlson, 2 years at 8.5.
So this is why they were clearing space.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, a few people had a shot at him. A few people traded for Carlson's rights. The Carolina tried to make an offer, which he wasn't interested in. It sounded like he either wanted to go to Toronto or Tampa, and Tampa, I think, makes a lot of sense for him, for their depth. I'm curious to see what their power play looks like because everyone kind of was assuming okay, well, Victor Hedman is back on the power play there after Sergachev was traded away and so forth. It'll be Victor Hedman's power play. I'm curious. Is that top pairing? Probably they're not going to be playing Carlson and Hedman on the same pairing, but
also
Hedman's been on the top power play.
But also Hedman's been injured.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Remember,
at this point,
I think what they're looking at there is you might see a situation where Cooper sort of runs a 1A 1B. So, and having him there lets them run a 1A and 1B. It's. I think in the mid part of the season there might be a phase where if Tampa's sitting in a good spot, what Tampa might decide to do is they might decide to back the minutes down a little bit for Hedman. And so you run Carlson in the spot that you run Carlson in the spot a bit more. So
I think they have a good decor in there now with this addition, and there'll probably be a handful of teams who were really hoping to be able to sign Carlson, who was pretty much really the only good veteran, top pairing minutes guy who was available in free agency. So maybe now we're starting to look at, making trades for, guys like, your Dougie Hamiltons who we're talking about, Eric Carlson's, kind of those kind of guys. Maybe that's where it starts shaking up into those kind of deals.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Washington have had the most weird off-season.
Yeah.
It's not done because we had 3 different reports today that talked about what the hell was going on with Ovi. Yeah. We had a report that said that he's basically retiring. Then we had another report that said he wasn't retiring. Then the Capitals came out and sort of hedged their bets and made it sound like he wasn't retiring, but it wasn't confirmed yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So what they did instead was they just went out and loaded up.
Yeah, they're really deep now. Like adding a bunch of guys, like adding Alex Tuck, 8 years at 10.5, which is a little pricey, but for the role that he'll potentially get. Boone Jenner, who for years would not play anywhere except Columbus, 4 years at 5.75. Vinny Desharnais, 4 years at 4.2, and Justin Hall 1 year at 900. They also previous to this, we talked about traded for Jordan Kyrou, who's a big addition. They now really have really three really quite solid lines. If they manage to get Ovi back on like some weird deal where it probably requires some kind of like bonus laden contract.
Oh, it's all bonuses.
The only way to do it. Which look, we'll talk about a deal in a second that might be a comparable for this, which is the Zuccarello deal. Did you see the bonuses on the Zuccarello deal?
I did.
Which is 1 year at $1 million, but if he plays 10 games, he gets $5 million.
$5 million bonus.
Yeah, which if they go over the cap, then that goes into next year's cap, and they're like, "Well, we'll worry about that later." Maybe that's what they have to do with Ovi. Yeah, maybe that's what we have to do with Ovi if they get him to come back and look at this. Like,
look, they can do it. They can do an overage deal, and if anywhere can do an overage deal, Washington will do an overage deal for.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've made a good pitch for it. I think they've strengthened themselves overall as a team, and they were a pretty decent team previous to this. So
I think there was a lot of. I think they took missing the playoffs really hard.
Yeah.
And like they've got some good contracts there. Like I like the Dylan Strome at $5 million. I love the Dylan Strome at $5 million.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
But they've got some really good deals in the middle there. That's funny. The Dubois one is still an interesting one, and obviously with the injuries that he's had, that's a really interesting one. And obviously Tom Wilson is on 6.54 until the end of time, thanks to winning the cup. So but their defensive core, very quickly and very quietly got good. And it's in a point now where they could probably, if they really needed to clear cap space, Rasmus Sandin as a piece to be traded at $4.6 million for that. You could give up Rasmus Sandin quite easily to give them more cap space, and it wouldn't hurt them. So they've got a bit of flexibility in that. I mean, Lillard going to hate it because it means he loses Sandin again, but still.
I think it's
Cole
Sandin
Hudson's
who's running their power play now. I think that's the question is with Carlson gone. I guess it's Chikrin, but Sandin has been kind of bouncing in and out of that role as well. I mean, I wouldn't want to trade.
Let San Jose legend Vinny Desharnais do it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I wouldn't want to lose like the element that he brings to that lineup because I think it's otherwise a pretty kind of stationary D without him. But still, look, it's possible. We'll see how they improve.
Okay, my brother today had to deal with the New York Rangers doing very weird things again. Joe Veleno, I said 1 year at 1.2, cool. Oliver Bjorkstrand 1 year 4.5 with a 15 team no trade because why not?
I'm fine with that. It's okay.
I don't. Again, the Rangers went out and got defense. They need centers, but they got defense.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're doing. And I also think it's very clear at this point in time that neither does Chris Drury. I also it was it might have actually been the Dangle live stream today that talked about it. They were like, maybe James Dolan's just no longer paying attention. Like the Knicks won the NBA, and he's so Knicks focused at the moment that that Drury's allowed to do whatever the hell he wants at this point in time. Let's quickly get into the other deals. So the Zuccarello deal, as you said, 1 year at $1 million with a $5 million bonus. I hate the Kings of the Fiery Passion, as we know, but that deal is superb. And
yeah, it's a wonderful deal.
Zuccarello is going to be brilliant on the Kings. I hate saying that.
It's hard. He is old now, and he has had a lot of injuries.
But he's a setup merchant.
But even if he plays 50 games for them, I think that's fine.
He's going to if you want to find a way to get the best out of some of the talent on that roster that hasn't necessarily done what it should have done, you put them with him.
Yeah, he's
Because I
a
think
he's a great third piece to add to a line for sure.
if you've got him with Quinton Byfield, I think Byfield's game goes up. I think it's absolutely, and I would pair Zuccarello with Byfield before I paired Byfield with Panarin. I would put Zuccarello with him. I think that's a much better option for him. Anderson stays in Vegas 7 by 8.5.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of felt like they were committed to it after making the trade for him. They, even after he had a kind of difficult start to his tenure in Vegas, they decided, well, we're committed to Rasmus Anderson.
What a weird concept. Vegas decided they were committed to a player.
Yeah. Well,
not something we're used to.
Part of it is we heard, Pietrangelo was going to stay on IR. He's probably not going to play again. So, that obviously cuts down on their depth quite a bit.
But as we said, more of their moves today were about getting a lovely Detroit-sized hole out of the middle of the roster, which is what they've spent their day doing. Scott Lawton goes back to LA, 3 years at 3.5. Not a bad deal. That's fine. Although we should also congratulate the Kings on being the runners-up in the Stanley Cup, because obviously Corey Perry, 1 year, $1 million with the Kings as well. So the Kings are going to the Cup final to lose.
Yes,
good for them. Now, the weird one of the day was the big swap with Anaheim and Florida that ended up with Radko Gudas in Florida. Because that feels so Florida.
Yeah, definitely. And also the fact that they've structured it to fit with their thing by giving him 1.5 over 6 years, which there's no way that Radko Gudas is still playing hockey at 42 years old.
Oh God, no!
I'm surprised his body can still move it at 36.
There's absolutely no chance that happens.
How he throws 400 hits a year and still is able to move his shoulders, I don't know. But
and the AJ Greer of it, which was the other part of the move, 4.25 million in Anaheim. With it will shock you to learn contract protections. 4 years at 4.25, and he's got a modified no trade 10-team list the whole way through. Look, Radko Gudas being on Florida just feels like it should be a thing. So now I'm not suggesting that the goaltender market is still not necessarily done, but Stuart Skinner is playing in Winnipeg. I wonder why Stuart Skinner is in Winnipeg. That feels like a move that you make when you're expecting one of your goaltenders to no longer be in Winnipeg.
Well, certainly like the money that he got, 2 years at 3.75. That's not backup money.
Yeah, you have to sign him to back up.
I think if anything, maybe that's a platoon of a 1A, 1B, but that's not what Connor Hellebuck does. Connor Hellebuck is volume goalie. He is the poster boy for volume goalie. So I don't. Yeah, that doesn't look like a great sign for Hellebuck staying in Winnipeg.
So I was thinking about it. We talked a little bit about what we thought was going to happen, and remember I talked about the idea of Bobrovsky might find his way to Carolina, for example. I think Hellebuck might find his way down to Carolina, and you end up with Brandon Bossy and Connor Hellebuck.
That would be interesting.
They've got 11 million in cap, remember, and they haven't touched it. They have not touched it. They did nothing. They just sat there. So, they were going to try to use that money on John Carlson, and it didn't work. So,
look, if they send Kochkov back and a bunch of pieces or whatever, I think that makes sense.
Winnipeg would like people who will stay in Winnipeg. And speaking of players that are going to stay in Winnipeg, Mario Ferraro. Now 3 years, $4 million. Look, I saw a bunch of people in the Sharks fan base going, "Oh, we could have given him that. I wouldn't have given him that." It was time. I love Mario as a person. It was time to move Mario Ferraro on. There's a lot of argument as to what he is in San Jose, and I don't think anyone ever knew. I think Mario Ferraro is weird for me. He feels like someone that other fan bases coveted. And the Sharks fan base has always been thoroughly confused by what he is. And it's a weird one. Ferraro is a weird one. I don't get it. I've heard Leafs fan bases. I've heard Edmonton over there. Oh, we really need to go out and get Mario Ferraro. And I'm sitting there going, why?
Yeah, I looked at him, a picture of him today too, and he looks like he is 10 years older than he actually is. He's 27 years old, and he's got some age on his face.
His name inspires the idea of him being like a guy in his early 40s who's from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Or speaking of that, so let's finish up. We'll talk quickly about we obviously talked before about what happened with Werenski. I want to quickly mention, just before we finish, there are a couple of teams that I think have had a very bad time. Dallas, I mentioned. We didn't mention them, but we should just quickly skim over the fact that nobody wants to go to Seattle. And they've got tax breaks for another couple of years.
Yeah, well, they basically have like no income tax.
Well, they're about to pick up an income tax.
Yeah.
But they were, when they made the offer that they made the other day.
That's right. They were going to front load it. Yeah.
They were going to front load it. So basically all of his money happened in the tax-free years.
Yeah.
And then he was paid nothing for the rest of it, but he got no tax on the first bit. And he said no. But the one obviously is Columbus. I think that's a really big one. And I don't know about you, but I can't help but wonder if maybe re-signing Rick Bowness as the coach is not inspiring a lot of people. I don't know. What do you reckon? I don't get it.
I mean, look, it's not a great, like, there's not great vibes around Columbus right now. That's for sure. Like, certainly with the well, maybe we should trade our award-winning defenseman straight out of town.
So I can make it worse for you. So my last thing we'll talk about before we go is, did you see who they added as the main assistant to Rick Bowness?
Oh, I did, and I've forgotten.
Don Granato.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Former Buffalo Sabres head coach.
Yeah.
And permanent mafia meme. Don Granato, and I literally saw this the Columbus fan base going, it feels like we've brought him in case anything happens to Rick Bowness that he can't finish a season. They've got Don Granato on the bench, just ready to come in. Like, but it's such a messed up franchise, and I don't know what they do. Like, do we believe the statement today that Werenski wants to stay in Columbus and win in Columbus? Or I personally think they're taking the heat out of it because they know no deal is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's like, well, we tried, we couldn't find a fit that works, so we've decided we'll hold off. We'll let the heat cool off. We'll see if something else comes up in the future. I would be shocked if he played out the rest of his contract in
I think he possibly, if they're horrible at the trade deadline, I think you move him at the trade deadline.
Yeah, for sure. Well, he has so he has 2 years left, including this year. I mean, if another option comes up that he likes, absolutely. I mean, he's not going to be like, oh no, I bleed, fucking blue and red and whatever else colors Columbus.
I feel like the other part of this, just quickly, was that everyone talked about Columbus probably felt embarrassed about the fact that they couldn't get a deal done, and the teams were rejecting them. But if you're Zach Werenski, the idea that Dallas rejected the idea of a move with Harley and Werenski, like the idea that you were rejected by Dallas, so like he's on the table and he's ready to go, and the idea that Dallas went, I don't know, and then he went no to Dallas. Like, where did he want to play? Like, where on earth? Because we were talking about this yesterday. So I was updating Brendan as the day was going on, and when he rejected Dallas and he turned down the idea of going to Dallas, it was Tampa or Toronto.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is Zach Werenski going to blow all this up? Tampa couldn't give anything. This is the other point.
Yeah.
Tampa had nothing to give. So I wonder if he cornered himself with Tampa or Toronto and then looked and went, oh, God, it's only Toronto.
Yeah.
Because Matthew Nyes would have been it.
Yeah, that would have been the only option,
And
really.
so I wonder if it wasn't a case of he rejected Dallas, then realized he wanted Tampa, but Tampa had nothing to trade, and
Yeah.
Toronto could get it done, and he'd said he'd go to Toronto. I wonder if there was a sudden climb down on, oh, no, I don't actually want to
Also,
do
I
that.
think like the fact that Toronto actually went out and traded for and then signed Darren Radish, I think is probably also the point where they went, well, we're no longer in this game for Werenski anymore. We've made our choice.
Possibly, but I think they could have they probably could have put a package together to get Werenski because they didn't want.
I wouldn't be shocked if the talk happened before the Radish.
They wanted roster players.
Yeah, if
Don Waddell wanted roster.
It feels like it fell through, and then they went, all right, we'll get Radish then. We'll give Radish that money.
Yeah, because Don Waddell wanted roster players, and it would have had to have been Matthew Nyes.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that would have been the move.
Yeah.
But anyway, that'll do us.
Got to that point. But,
that'll do us for this one. We will be back. We'll probably give it a couple of weeks or so, and then we'll be back, and there will be off-season content. I'm starting to plan out some off-season content, which I haven't told Brendan about yet, but we will get there. So we usually do some fun stuff in the off-season, some stuff that's a bit different. We've done documentary sort of watches and stuff like that. We will let you know what we're going to be doing as we move forward, and we'll probably come back and do a wrap once all of the last bits of the contracts are done as well. But that's going to do us for now. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for getting through the brief blip where my internet decided to die. And we will catch you all later.
See ya.